She was born into polygamy. Her family followed the teachings of Joseph Smith, including plural marriage. Like many young girls, she had been promised to a man who was her father's age. But she ran away. She chose hell over a life of polygamy. That girl was me. I was lost, alone, desolate. Then Jesus Christ found me and rescued me. In His love, I found real freedom. He is a shield to all who will take refuge in Him. This is why I can look back and ask, polygamy? What love is this? Welcome to Polygamy, What Love Is This? I'm Doris Hanson, your host, and we talk about Mormon polygamy on our show. And today's show, we're going to be discussing a question posed to the LDS people. What would you do if polygamy became a commandment again? But first, if you or anyone you know is in a polygamy group and would like help getting out safely, you can call a Shield and Refuge ministry. You can go to shieldandrefuge.org on the website for more information. And you can also call the toll-free number 877-425-9993, and everything discussed will be held in complete confidence. Also, if you or someone you know would like to be a guest on our show, if you have or comments or questions about a program, you can email us. Email at whatloveisthis.tv or 385-240-2888. For telephone calls regarding the show. And for your calendar, I've been invited to speak to Main Street Church in Brigham City on Sunday, September 25th. Services start at 10 a.m. I would love to meet you. You can come, and I could like to meet old friends and make new ones. Or if you want to, you can watch live on the internet. You just search Main Street Church, Brigham City, and then follow the links. And right now, I would like to thank and introduce Earl back as our co-host.
Thanks for having me again.
And
thank
you again for all your help. You know, many members of the LDS Church, as well as Mormon fundamentalists, believe polygamy is a divinely inspired practice, meaning they believe God commanded it. The early Mormons struggled with polygamy, but some managed to conjure up the faith to enter into plural marriage, and many claimed that they received spiritual confirmation that it was from God. Now, there is no question that they sacrificed much in order to practice it, but Mormon history reveals the loneliness and the tragedy caused by their polygamy. We, as well as many viewers, are disturbed about how it was and how it is practiced, and it's right for us to be disturbed about it. Many modern Mormons believe that the way the pioneer Mormon polygamy was practiced was much like today's welfare programs. To provide for women and widows and children. But it takes a huge amount of ignoring the truth or ignorance of true Mormon history to continue to embrace that belief. Mitt Romney once remarked that polygamy was bizarre and awful, yet he never denounced the Joseph Smith who commanded Mormons to live this bizarre and awful polygamy. We wonder what LDS members would do if their prophet said God revealed to him that polygamy was required again, just like it was in Joseph Smith's day. How would they feel if it was commanded, or maybe just the bishops or the high priests or the mission presidents or the stake presidents or the 70 or the 12, just the people up in the higher echelons were required to have plural wives. Well, I found a website that asked that question, and so I started thinking about it, and I wonder, what would the individual LDS members do if this happened? How many would rebel about it? How many would accept it? How many would say it's about time that happened, and how many would leave the LDS Church because of it? And what would be the power struggles that ensued after that? The polygamy groups have all believed for for a long, long time that they are the only true Mormons. Each group believes it's the only true kingdom of God. They are the ones, of course, who are obeying Joseph Smith, Brigham Young, and other early Mormon polygamist icons because they obey Joseph Smith's polygamy. What would their reactions be if suddenly they had competition from the mainline Mormons in the practice of plural marriage? Actually, the question isn't would we see power struggles, but what kind of power manipulation would take place and who would be the main players. If there were to survive in this scenario, the polygamy groups would have to administer their religion and their doctrine in totally different ways than they are doing now. If the LDS began practicing polygamy, wouldn't that confirm, by the way, that fundamentalists were right all along?
All along, yeah.
We understand that these questions are if scenarios, but we also need to realize that Joseph Smith did say polygamy was an eternal principle and that if you don't practice it, you will be damned. All the powerful Mormon polygamist prophets taught damnation for those who refused polygamy. So I came across this website a few years ago, and it was asking some questions and receiving some very interesting responses, and they were mostly from the mainline LDS male and female members. So we thought it'd be an interesting show to share some of their most interesting responses. Now, these are the questions that were asked on the website.
If a revelation came from the prophet, would you believe it, and would the Quorum of the 12 sustain it? And the second question, would you approve it as long as you didn't have to do it? Number 3, would it be acceptable or unacceptable to you, even if only those in higher positions were required to practice it? And 4, if you're a woman or your husband was required to take a plural wife, what would you do?
And number 5, the fifth question was, if you're a man, would you consider being eternally sealed to another woman, even if it was a spiritual, non-sexual marriage only? Number 6, do you think you could be happy in a polygamist relationship? And number 7, would you remain in the LDS church or leave the church over that revelation? Why or why not? And so we are going to go back and forth with some of the answers that came from these questions. One reader immediately reacted with this response.
It sounds like a perk for leadership. That just sounds wrong, wrong, wrong.
Okay, well, polygamy is a perk for leadership. If you go back and look at the history of Mormon polygamy and also polygamy groups today, the leadership choose their wives first. They choose the prettiest, they choose the most submissive and obedient, and then they proceed to make babies, and that's the life of a polygamous bride of a polygamous leader.
Wow.
Remember that the polygamous male doesn't live with each wife as a monogamous man lives. He cannot share his day-to-day life with each wife and her children, obviously. And as the presiding male or patriarch, he is not accountable to his wives. He comes and goes as he pleases, and if he's ever questioned, all he has to do is walk out and then go sleep with the next wife, who will be sweet and submissive in order to have his company. Now, we grouped the questions and the responses according to the question asked. So the first question was, would you believe in a revelation to reinstate polygamy if the LDS prophet and the Quorum of the 12 sustained it? So let's look at some of the answers.
And we'll just kind of take turns, I guess.
Yeah.
I do think that a commandment like this would be incredibly polarizing. Persecution against those who left over it would be significantly higher than it would for one leaving over something relatively minor. I still remember the fallout from the one pair of earrings revelation and how one lady in our past ward was ostracized because she vocalized her opinion that it was stupid.
Okay, so every little thing has some repercussions. Now remember that these answers are mostly from LDS members. The second answer said, since I believe the original revelation stemmed from a cover-up for infidelity, I would have to seriously question it. My big question would be, why?
And the next one, I'm willing to cut Joseph Smith some slack in that he endured a lot and was under a lot of pressure and apparently felt compelled to practice polygamy. But I tend to believe that he was deceived or simply went too far with whatever it was that he may have gotten permission from the Lord to do. It would be harder for me to cut the same slack since I would think that we've already been through this mistake before.
It's interesting, isn't it? And one woman said, "I can't imagine living this way." Exclamation point. Of course, she's right. No one can imagine living this way until they've actually lived this way, and it is a horrible way to live.
Boy, you'd sure have a different view of polygamy if you spent any time in it or seeing it in
right.
life. I've thought about this quite a bit, was another response, and I've never been able to come up with a satisfying answer. If you're going to point a gun to my head, I would have to say that I would be able to accept the practice of polygamy within my faith as long as it is done fully out of free will. That is, young girls are not bullied into marriages. I would not be able to accept it if I had any reason to suspect that there was coercion involved. In that case, I would probably withdraw my membership. All of this is subject to change, of course. Now, this is interesting. If I felt that the Spirit directly confirmed the validity of the revelation to restore polygamy.
Yeah.
Back to feelings.
Back to the feeling, that's
Yeah.
right. And that feelings are not the barometer for truth. Another response said, after the ban against the priesthood for black people, the continuing second-class status of LDS women, and the duplicity about the church's active exercise of political power, I don't think I could salvage a shred of trust in the general authorities.
Next response, I would not enter into such a relationship just because the brethren said I should, but if you received a witness from God, how could you stand up and tell him no?
That's a good answer, but...
Yeah.
Another one said, I am surprised to see how few people are saying that they would pray for a witness. I certainly never follow the GA's counsel without seeking a witness, but if I did receive one, then I would hope that I would follow the Lord's wishes for my life. You know, right here I have to stop and say, they're looking for a witness, they're looking for a feeling, they're looking for confirmation, and the confirmation to polygamy is right here in the Bible. God says no. Now, why would, if he said no, would he ever give a revelation saying yes? It's impossible, because God doesn't change and God doesn't lie.
Good point.
So that is the witness. That's the witness to everything. The second question, would you be okay with it as long as you didn't have to live it personally?
Interesting thought. One response was probably not. Why would I support others doing something I disagree with? But with that said, I fully support people's rights to enter whatever marriages or relationship they feel is best for them.
So why support marriages that God doesn't allow? I don't understand that. This guy's a Mormon. He's got a religious mindset. Yet if God said no, why? God's only model for marriage is monogamy. Even the Book of Mormon condemns polygamy.
It does.
And another answer said, no, absolutely not.
This one's interesting. As long as it doesn't concern minors, I don't have any more problem with it than with swingers or people living common law. Definitely not for me, but as long as it's consensual, I can't really be all that bothered by it.
Okay, and we get quite a bit of talking like that, you know, where it's adults doing the adult things
Yeah.
together.
But it does affect the children.
Well, adults have
Unavoidably.
children.
Unavoidably.
Men
yeah.
and women have children, and of course there's going to be children involved.
Yeah.
And I don't think they think that when they say adults. Do they forget that there's going to be babies come?
Yeah.
Another answer said, I think it depends. I don't want to see 14-year-old brides or marrying already married women. I'd really have to pray, and pray some more about it. Somehow, I don't think I'd ever have to worry about practicing it myself. Now again, here it is, pray. They don't have to pray about something that God has already revealed. We don't have to pray about, do we lie about something? Because God said that not to lie. And it's the same with polygamy. God said not to do it. Don't pray about something God said not to do.
It all comes to that, if you believe that you've got a current prophet, that's a living prophet instead of...
That's
But
exactly
everybody
right.
thinks they're a prophet. So another answer, no, I don't think I would. I think Mormon women are raised to be self-sacrificing enough as it is. I think for the sake of women and the history of the Mormon Church, the church need never ask that much from their women again. I couldn't support any further abuses like that.
What an interesting comment. I like that comment.
Yeah.
Somebody has been doing their homework and they know what's been going on in the Mormon history to answer that. What I would like to know, however, is whoever did make this answer, why would they stay and support a church that they know has been abusive? and deceptive in their history.
Yeah.
That's what I
Some
don't
reason they're
understand.
able to excuse the history.
It's
Very
bizarre.
easily excuse it as though it doesn't affect them or it isn't part of
Yeah, if it doesn't
reality.
affect me, I
and-
don't care, kind
yeah,
of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, question number 3. Would it be acceptable to you, even if only brethren with higher callings were instructed to practice it?
Her first answer, nope, since it is just a step away from either hubby getting called to a higher position or for it getting generalized for everyone.
Okay, Earl, you were a bishop. How would you answer it if this is you answering this question while you were a Mormon?
Sign me up. No. You know, faithfully, I mean, I would pray about it, but I would have followed the brethren, I'm sure.
You would
I
have followed the
had
brethren.
no
Would your
re-
wife have followed the
That's
brethren with it?
another question,
Is she
and I
kick
don't
and scream
know.
about it?
She might have, but I think she would have been obedient.
Hmm.
I just think that there's a certain core of us that are without, when our eyes are closed and not open, we just don't, we're ignorant, and we're blindly
Blind.
faithful.
Yeah, that's what the
Blindly
Bible says,
faithful.
blinded. Okay, the next question, or the next answer to that same question is, that would seriously raise red flags for me. In a church where everyone is supposed to be equal and supposedly being led by a God who is no respecter of persons, extending this commandment or favor, as an early leader called it, seems at odd with that.
Yeah. Another response, it would be unacceptable if only the brethren with higher callings were asked. I think that would be fishy. I'd rather it not be a free-for-all, but I don't think it should be reserved for just the higher callings.
So you mentioned before that when you were in the church, they thought polygamy was a calling in the early days, right? That it was like people are called to head the Reef Relief Society, they're called to live polygamy, like it was
Well,
a
that
calling.
was an interesting question because we did another show that I actually asked a number of people about that calling, and some people thought it was a calling, and other people thought, well, that was just what everybody did. If you can find 2 women to agree to marry you, you go get them. You know, you didn't have to go get a calling. I'm actually not sure the actual practice in a ward setting, if a person had to go to their bishop and get approval
They
or
did in the
not.
early days. They had to get approval from the
When they
leader
first got
if
here
they could
in-
marry, and the polygamy
when they
groups
got
do
out
it the
here
same way.
in Zion. Huh?
Yeah, they had to.
So I think before
Brigham
they
Young had to give okay.
probably had to get Joseph's approval or something, but
Well, he did it
interesting.
so secretly.
Yeah.
Well, the next answer to that question is no way.
Just flat out, no way.
No way.
The next one, that would seem odd to me that the revelation only applied to certain people and not everyone. But if that's what was declared, again, I would pray and think about it and see how it gelled with me. Better them than me, though, I say.
There you go. If somebody else does it, doesn't affect me. So, do they get to pick and choose which revelations that their prophet gives that they follow?
Well, there's some defining of things and terms as it goes along. Even like the one earring thing, you know, some people would say, well, that might be for young girls, but it isn't for me. I'm an older adult, so I could have. I think they kind of push the thought envelope there when they go to each
Interesting.
revelation. Maybe not.
Okay, well, question number 4. If you're a woman and your husband was asked to take on another wife, would you consider granting permission?
Not in a million years, but I know my husband wouldn't take another wife. I wouldn't be so sure about that. But
The next answer was, no way, I ain't sharing him with anyone in this life or the next.
I believe I would, but of course I would have to receive a witness about it.
And there's that witness again, okay? We could send her a Bible,
Yeah, we
because
could
that's
send-
the witness.
Yeah.
The next answer said, they said, consider it, I give it, after prayer and fasting for my own confirmation. But I'd be 100% okay with it if it were reinstated through revelation. Now again, God's not going to give revelation for something that He's already given His word on His will about. And the Bible's clear. No polygamy. People lived it, but God never commanded it.
Yeah. This is the response I've heard from some people who think we're going to have to live polygamy in the next life, and it says, not even when hell freezes over. I've had a hard enough time getting all the attention I want already. I would probably divorce him just for asking.
Don't you dare even ask, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Don't even think about it.
That's a good response. Question number 5. If you're a man, would you consider being eternally sealed to another woman, even if it was a spiritual, non-sexual marriage only?
Interesting. Probably not, this person said. I'd have to know why it was even necessary.
And that's a good question. Why is it necessary? If we're going to go to heaven, why polygamy of all things? You know, it doesn't make sense. Another answer, in this day and age, in the sexually saturated culture we live in, I just don't think this is realistic.
Next one, I'd much more easily accept the practice of plural marriage than embrace slavery. I'm not sure why, but no contest whatsoever.
And this person doesn't realize that polygamy is slavery. And again, if they watched the polygamists and lived in a polygamy situation and saw how the women are treated, sometimes the children, it is slavery. The second, third, and fourth, and 10th wives never are that first one and only beloved that the first wife is to a man. It is slavery.
And that discussion we had last week about the raids and so on, about the the food stamp fraud and all that proves kind of that these people are in bondage.
Yeah, they are in bondage to the
leaders.
To the leadership.
Yeah.
The next answer said, no, I can't imagine loving anyone other than my wife the way I love my wife. How sweet that is.
Yeah. It would be hard for me to have a committed relationship without the romantic, passionate aspect.
Okay, those were good, nice responses. And I like to hear those kind. Number 6, question number 6. Do you think you could be happy in a polygamist relationship? I love these answers.
Yeah, some of these are good. Definitely not. I love him. He's mine. Hands off. Yeah.
The next answer said, I guess, to be honest, I used to think it would be cool, but that was purely a result of my being a blank young man at the time. I think if you're raised thinking it's normal and each member of the marriage is okay with it and working towards making it successful, I don't see why not.
I may get publicly stoned for this, but yes, I do believe that it could be possible. If that was the life the Lord wanted me to live, I believe that He would help me to understand and value my life and my role.
But what about valuing the life of the women who have to sacrifice so much to do it? The next answer was flat out no.
And this next one, yes, I really do. It's about trusting your husband and the Lord. If you can do both, then a polygamous relationship is probably easier than you'd realize. I think you'd have to truly have faith and trust in the Lord that you could be happy in a polygamous relationship. I have a pretty big problem with polygamy. I guess I would soften that stance somewhat if a few of Joseph Smith's practices were allowed, such as allowing women to be sealed to multiple husbands. If it's okay for men to be sealed to multiple wives, the reverse is only fair too.
Turnabout's fair play.
Yeah.
It's good for the goose, good for the gander. The next answer said, no way in hell.
This one, never ever in a million gazillion years.
Okay, so
wouldn't like that one, I guess.
That doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of them that want polygamy to come back. And number 7, would you leave the church over it? Why or why not?
I haven't left the church after seeing an incredible amount of sexual abuse by ecclesiastical leaders, so I don't think I would leave because of polygamy. However, I would probably speak out against it and might get excommunicated for it. For that.
Okay, so why is he still in a church where there's sexual abuse that he has witnessed? The next answer, my husband and I are retirement age, so I don't see my life changing in the least if celestial marriage were ordered again. But for the sake of my daughters and my son, I'd be utterly disgusted. I think it would be the final straw.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
I am curious why someone would leave the church if polygamy were brought back. If you feel that strongly about it, why haven't you left over the past practice? That's a good. If it is wrong now, it was wrong then.
Good answer.
Excellent. Yeah.
The next one. This one would probably push me over the edge. I would hold on to the things I've already had testimonies over, but polygamy, no way. One thing I'll just never accept in this life or the next. So if I go to Hades for it, I guess I'll have to accept that. You know, it's amazing how many times in Mormon polygamy, the word polygamy and going to hell are in the same sentence. It just makes me sick.
That was the threat that was always over your head, wasn't it?
Yep.
I would definitely stop attending and probably have my name removed, as well as in the hopes that the leaders would have a visual idea of the effect of their decision. In fact, now that I think about it, I would probably be a little bit noisy about it, so I might get kicked out before I have the chance to leave. But I would continue to hold to the good doctrines and values I believe are true.
And the next answer is probably the most honest and the most informed of all of them.
No doubt I would leave the church. Polygamy is responsible for way too much grief and suffering of women and children in our church. I could not possibly have a happy relationship with my wife and kids under this kind of practice. And my wife and kids are number one in my life, above the church on my list.
Good.
I cannot believe polygamy was commanded by God. The practice was so deceptive in the beginning, and I can't believe that if it was truly commanded by God, that Joseph Smith would hide it from his wife, have secret weddings, and even go so far as to have a bride dress up as a man, and so on. To see what it would be like in modern times, all you have to do is look to the FLDS polygamists. There would be no difference. And that's true, right?
That's a very good answer, and a very informed answer as well. You know, all a person needs to do is read the many dozens of books and articles and interviews of people who have left modern-day polygamy groups to realize how evil and abusive they are, and they have a total disregard for the basic human rights of the women and children. There should be no question in anyone's mind that God ever commanded polygamy and that he never will. You know, Joseph Smith said, live it or be damned. Brigham Young said, live it or be damned. But Jesus is the Savior, not polygamy. Yeah. Jesus is the Savior all by himself. And polygamy doesn't have anything to do with it. Nobody has to live anything like that to please God. That's the message in the Bible.
Well, Jesus saved us on the cross. Anything beyond that is works, and it's not necessary.
That's right.
One thing that I've thought about is my one son has had a daughter that's now turned 16. But can you imagine being a father, a priesthood leader or something on the stand, and having a 14, 15, 16-year-old girl, daughter coming along, becoming mature, and having all the men
oogling over, trying to decide.
Trying to work out deals and trades and exchanges, favors in order to get your daughter
That's what they do.
At an early age. That would be just
sickening. In the polygamy groups, though, the men think it's a real privilege to give their daughter to the leader, so no matter how young.
And doesn't that provide or encourage a sexual thought process all the time? You're thinking about sex, not Jesus, or not.
That's exactly what it does, Earl.
Yeah, I would think it would.
So anyway, that's what they said if it came back, and thanks, Earl, again for helping out in the show. You know, it's strange that Mormon-based polygamy groups discourage their members from doing the very thing that Joseph Smith did, search to discover which church is true. Instead, when members express doubt, they are ridiculed. But why was it okay for Joseph Smith to do what his religion now condemns? The 11th article of faith states the privilege of worshiping according to the dictates of our own conscience and allowing all people the same privilege. But it doesn't work out that simply for those who discover that when we have Jesus, we don't need Joseph, because Jesus is everything and we cannot add anything to everything. God has kept the way to heaven open without Joseph Smith's help. We don't need him or polygamy. So why not be a former day saint and just follow Jesus? Thank you for watching our show.